If there's one thing you should know about my channel is that I absolutely love horror. It always gives such a rush when I have a good scare, or all the interesting discussion that could be brought up when talking about it. There's a couple different categories of horror, like your standard slashers that stalk the night to the supernatural creatures like ghosts or demons, creatures that defy the logic that we humans set as a standard, and make you question reality. However, creatures that really make you question our reality and our place in the universe is another type of horror called cosmic horror. The idea of beings beyond our planet themselves, ones that are so much above us in scale that we are powerless to do anything about them. And while there are quite a few different types of cosmic horror, some of the worst cosmic horror are the types that are more specifically interested in us, one under the guise of something familiar, something that doesn't seem so significant, that being other planets. Planets aren't exactly alive, right? There's no way they can actually threaten us. But these two are very different, both being alive planets that seek to take over everything. The Iris from Gemini Home Entertainment versus the Hellstar Remina from Junji Ito's Hellstar Remina. Two planets that are associated with eyes that stare down at our world. They're both interested in us, wanting to have us to themselves, but that does bring down the question. Between these two cosmic horrors of planetary proportions, if they were to ever meet, who would get that pleasure to themselves? That's what we are here to figure out today. Who would win? And without further ado, let's take a look at our characters. Let's start off with the Iris. The Iris is a massive planet that seems to be in the shape of an eye, as its name would suggest. The Iris itself is a lot bigger than Earth, and seemingly larger than Neptune, although it is stated to be smaller than Saturn, so somewhere in between those. Although due to the fact that this planet seems to be able to shift itself, it could potentially grow larger than just its basic size, meaning that naturally it is a planet-level threat because it is one. It has a lot of abilities from technology manipulation and being able to communicate through technology, being able to communicate telepathically and manipulate dreams, seemingly. And this being isn't just a traditional planet, it is a full-on living creature. It has a whole internal system of organs and everything. But inside of its conscious mind, it seems to store an entire pocket dimension. Now, while the size of this place is unknown, it is assumed that this place is supposed to mirror Earth in some way. All we know is that it is a different dimensional space, almost like the Iris is a portal itself. And it even seems to predict events or copy events that are happening on the Earth, like how it showed someone being affected on Earth. And the Iris can even seemingly warp reality to an extent, being able to make things appear and disappear, or just be able to warp the foundations of physical matter in some way, like how it's able to make a door disappear from a building or warp the foundation of the building in general. And it can summon wood crawlers and harvesters to replace and infect other planets over time. But while this is all very impressive, how strong really is the Iris? Well, because of its size alone, it is a planet-level threat, and due to the fact that it can infect Neptune, it obviously is around the large planetary levels, although this definitely did take time. Based on the fact that Earth hasn't been fully infected yet over a long period of time, and so assuming that Neptune was taken over instantly just doesn't really make that much sense, and there was definitely some time to this. But there is a bit of a caveat to this, because to scale how strong the Iris truly is, we should be able to scale it to Neptune, because the Iris should naturally be stronger than it, and it was able to turn Neptune into a weapon, into basically what is a living laser, although we don't know the properties of this fully. And this might be more impressive than you think it is, because while the blast from Neptune only did a slight fragmentation into this mountain on our planet, which would reach around 25 kilotons of TNT, even this is a little bit of a lowball, but this was only a slight fragment of the beam we actually see, since we see the beam kind of scattering out into space, meaning that the full blast of the beam, one comparing it to the size of Neptune's great dark spot, and then comparing the distance it would have to travel to Earth and how much energy would need to be in this, the full blast of the beam, assuming that it's only traveling at around light speed, The blast at full would be around 20 to 60 zetatons of TNT, which is around the small planetary to planetary level ranges. But there are ways to get this feat way higher, because a lot of people treat Neptune's laser as just a laser, but there are interpretations that get this feat much higher, based on when we look at the feat again, and we look at when the beam was first shot out and where it cuts to being much closer to the sun. You can visibly see it a lot closer to the sun, arguably in a similar distance to what Earth's perspective of the sun would look like. And this entire process took around 16 seconds, and if you took this all literally, that means Neptune's laser would have been around 900 to 1,000 times the speed of light, which would actually put the potential energy output of this to be around 6.9 to 12 ronatons of TNT, putting this into the higher ends of large planetary. And the iris should naturally upscale from this. And while we don't know the full size of the iris, meaning it is very hard to actually get a good idea of how powerful its beam could be, based on the fact that it is larger than Neptune, seemingly, and smaller than Saturn, we can get a range for how strong it can be. Meaning that the iris could potentially be exerting forces around 18 to 60 ronatons of TNT, putting its full potential power theoretically in the brown dwarf levels of power. And in terms of speed, the iris can actually travel pretty fast, although we don't know if it can actually travel around the same speed of its beam, and I would actually assume it's a lot slower based on the fact its beam does seem to be its preferred opportunity to actually infect things. But its travel speed actually can be interpreted to be very high, as it is able to basically appear and disappear over the horizon, and vice versa, in the game Lethal Omen, which actually puts its movement speeds at around Mach 26,000 to Mach 289,000. To put this in perspective, this is around 3 to 33% the speed of light. And although these are kind of all theoretical and does involve you having to take a lot of things more seriously than they might have been intended, but for now this is a good theoretical range for how powerful the iris could be. Although you can also argue that it's just teleporting, but due to that not really being ever stated, I think there's an argument you can make for both. So as we have seen here, the iris is obviously a very powerful being, and there isn't much we can do to stop it. But it's not the only planetary being we are here to talk about today, so let's see if it has any competition for the Earth from its opponent. Now moving on to the Hellstar Remina. This entity is a living planet, seemingly around the same size as Neptune. Now, not a lot about this creature is fully understood, and some people say that it might come from an alternate dimension, and based on the fact that there was a wormhole located near when it was first found, that seems to be pretty likely the case. But regardless on where it came from, it is certainly easily one of the most horrifying threats from Junji Ito's collection. Starting with its abilities, this thing has highly advanced senses, being able to sense life from around 16 light years away. And it seems to be able to manipulate people on the emotional level, due to the fact that simply looking into its eye causes a person to go mad, and it assimilates matter into itself after melting it down in an acidic atmosphere, which is how it gains more power seemingly. And even getting closer to another planet like Earth, it seems to have an effect on their gravity to such an extent that people start floating and almost having the ability to fly. It seems to have some decent technological manipulation as well, or at least it can communicate through it. It can also reflect attacks like nuclear bombs, and it seems to be relatively immune to other gravitational forces from other planets, and even other stars, since it can move freely on its own, and taking the idea that the creature comes from a different dimension, it can open portals between its dimension and our own, seemingly. But this being isn't just terrifying because of those abilities, it's because of how powerful it actually is. With this entity being able to devour planets. He was effectively able to devour every planet in our solar system before the Earth, with the smallest of these being Mars, which would calculate anywhere from around 240 zetatons to 2.4 yotatons, which is casually in the planetary level yields, and the largest of which being Jupiter, which would require around 2.4 to 24 ronatons of TNT, which is around the large planetary to brown dwarf levels of power. And he seemingly did this to a whole bunch of other planets. And in terms of speed, it was stated that this thing could approach the speed of light when it was getting closer to Earth, and is actually implied to be faster since it does seem to get slower as it approaches planets, making this a threat that basically no one can beat. But we're not quite done with its scaling, because it turns out that Hellstar Remina can extinguish stars. This would require a feat around 240 quetatons to 2,400 quetatons, putting it into the star to large star levels of power. And this creature was able to devour the Hydra constellation in a 16-year event. While it is unknown where its attack potency could scale to this, potentially into the solar system to multi-solar system level ranges, although again this did take quite some time to do, this would also mean that Hellstar Remina would be traveling anywhere from around 150 to 300 times faster than light. So as a whole, Hellstar Remina is just a ridiculous threat that we don't even know the full extent of its power, or when it will stop, or if it will ever stop. But it is a force that no one can fight or even comprehend. But for now, enough with the analysis. Let's just see what we are here to know. Who would win? And yeah, looking at these two, yeah, this fight isn't even close. The Hellstar Remina is just so much more powerful than the Iris. But I will be fair to the Iris, it does have its advantages. First of all, it is most likely larger, based on the fact that Hellstar Remina only seems to be around the size of Neptune, and the Iris does appear that it is larger and can grow in size to some extent. And the Iris does have more abilities and is smarter, at least provably, because the Iris can straight up warp reality to some extent. And while Remina can arguably make portals, we've never seen it outright manipulate space unlike the Iris. And the Iris just seems to be more mentally aware and is outwardly shown to be more intelligent since it's been manipulating events since seemingly the very start of the series. And really, it just seems to be more conscious and being able to understand what humans do in their entirety compared to Hellstar Remina, who, while does seem to understand human emotion to some extent, it seems like it's more devour first and think later. And one more advantage the Iris kind of has is that it can fight at a range, and its beam could arguably be faster than Hellstar Remina's best travel speed, although again, this is an extremely theoretical high end for this beam, and really pushing into everything we see on screen and take it very literally in Gemini Home Entertainment. So the Iris might be able to hit him with this beam, although it would have to be point blank, and as we are going to go over, this hardly matters. But that's where kind of the advantages end for the Iris, because while they would be good against a lot of different opponents, it's just not that useful here. Hellstar Remina is just so much more powerful. Even when taking the absolute lowest end of what Hellstar Remina can do and scale to devouring stars, compared to the absolute highest and mostly only theoretical extent that the Iris could get to, the Hellstar Remina would still be around 4,000 times more powerful. And again, this is a massive lowball on Hellstar Remina's part. And in terms of actual speed, the Iris has never been able to show it could travel anywhere near as fast as its beam, which again is only theoretically as fast as it is, it might not even be that speed, since it's like saying someone firing a laser could travel as fast as a laser they shot. That just doesn't make any sense unless proven otherwise, which the Iris has never shown it could travel that fast before. And the best scaling we could even get the Iris to round is around 33% the speed of light. Now it could potentially be faster, but not only is Hellstar Remina actually have direct statements that put it over the Iris just casually, and even if we were to say that the Iris is 10 times faster than what we gave it earlier, heck, even 100 times faster, it would still be slower than Hellstar Remina. And even if the Iris could teleport and get away from Remina before it could close the distance, how would this really change anything? This would really just be delaying the inevitable, because eventually Hellstar Remina is just going to close that distance anyways. And even if the Iris could flee forever, that doesn't really mean it's a victory in any sense. Now, the Iris has some theoretical counters, but pretty much all of them don't really stack up when you look into things fully. First of all, could the Iris use its reality warping to warp Hellstar Remina? The short answer is no. The Iris has never really been shown to warp anything to a planetary scale, let alone something that is just so much more powerful than it is. And there seems to be a reason why it has to infect other planets instead of just going up to the planets immediately and just warping them into what it wants, meaning that this is very likely not something it could do. And while the Iris could theoretically infect Hellstar Remina, but there are problems with this too. First of all, the Iris, even if it sent a laser down into Hellstar Remina, it could actually be potentially reflected back to her based on what Hellstar Remina has done in the past. And even if her creatures ended up getting to that place, it probably wouldn't matter because they would be immediately melted down into the environment like everything else. And it just takes too much time to reliably do this. And the Deep Root could theoretically just be bonded with Hellstar Remina and wouldn't be able to do anything after that. Or the acidic nature would just deform it to such a degree that it couldn't work or spread anymore. It's just not a reliable enough way to win this fight. So, to put it short, while the Iris does have their advantages, none of them really help them in a fight like this. Even giving it the best possible ends it could get, Hellstar Remina is just way too powerful. And it kinda makes sense. The Iris had to assimilate planets over time, while the Hellstar Remina just devours. It doesn't wait. And inevitably is going to get its meal in the end, along with an extra snack. So, in my opinion, overall, I believe Hellstar Remina is winning this fight. But what do you all think? Do you agree with me, or is there something I missed and the Iris really should have been the superior one here? Let me know in the comments below, but thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.